So this is the third iteration of this fantastic property, directed by James Gunn, written by James Gunn, featuring all our favorite Guardians of the Galaxy, including Rocket, Mantis, Drax, Nebula, Sky-Lord, aka Peter Quill, Groot, plus a whole lot more. There are a lot of people in this movie. A lot of people have become part of this property, but that's part of. This is like the culmination of 3 films, plus even more when you count the Avengers stuff or the other places that
the holiday special, right?
Holiday
the 1 hour
special
Guardian special ran last December on Disney Plus.
And so we find ourselves at the beginning of the film. Rocket Raccoon, he's attacked by Will Poulter's character Adam Warlock, who's a newcomer, and they're trying to retrieve him for a character called the High Evolutionary. He's the person that created Rocket. Or enhanced him, and he wants his property back. And in the scuffle, Rocket is injured critically, and the Guardians then have to go through a series of trials and a few MacGuffins in order to save Rocket. So we get an adventure to save our friend, and we meet this very good villain played by Chukwudi Iwuji, whose name I've learned to say correctly over this week.
Yes.
As the High Evolutionary. We have a lot of fun, a lot of humor, a lot of darkness, surprisingly. Like, there's some really dark stuff in this. It's a really good time in the movies. It's a little bit too long at full 2.5 hours, but it's overall a pretty good time. Zach, what'd you think?
I liked it, actually. I like Guardians Volume 3. I liked it more than I think I liked Volume 2, which I was surprisingly mid on. And I think it's because, like, at its core, Guardians 3 is like a good comic book adventure, right? Like, oh, our friend is injured, and we got to go save him, and we got to go to this planet and do this weird thing or get this thing, you know. Like, and in a way, like, that's a good time. It gives your heroes a lot of time to bounce off one another and do things that are organic and fun. It does, I think, have problems. It's worth mentioning. It's not a perfect movie, but, like, whereas Guardians 2 is more of a bottle feature, they just kind of arrive on Kurt Russell's planet and do their thing for 80 minutes. Like, this one actually takes some dips and dives, and through a long runtime at 2.5 hours, like, ended up really keeping me tuned in, and I really liked it. What'd you think? And what's the best place to start talking about it?
Well, we can start with the plot. I thought it was a little bit bloated, just kind of in the first half. The first thing that they have to do after Rocket is injured, they have to go to this kind of living planet to secure a thing so they can save him. And this sequence just kind of takes a little bit too long. It's a fun time because it's a lot of, like, Star Wars sneaking around on this ship, you know, yeah. Putting on stormtrooper costume, that sort of thing. There's a lot of funny things that happen. There is we get a lot of kind of back and forth between all of the cast and characters. Some funny cameos. Nathan Fillion shows up as this guard character. That's really funny. Like I said, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people who all have to kind of be balanced.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's helped by good banter. Like, that's something that's always brought people to the Guardians movies. They're funny. James Gunn is the writer and director, and he penned the script for it. The Guardians are snappy in this movie, which I think is good. They're not quite like you remember them in 2. It turns out the events of the holiday special have happened. The Guardians now kind of reside on this planet called Nowhere. It's like this planetoid skull-looking ship thing.
Floating
really cool.
planet, yeah.
Yeah, and they got a whole, like, community of, like, people and aliens that wander through there. And it seems like that's kind of their abode, and they kind of, you know, protect it. And after Rocket's injured, like Andy said, they have to strike out and go basically to where Rocket came from. Like, they have to go towards the place that he started from. And the movie, like, bounces between these flashbacks of where that is, which is probably where we should start talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
How phenomenally dark these sequences are of Rocket's origins as a young raccoon. Andy, you want to tell people a little bit about what they're looking forward to?
Yeah, so while Rocket is incapacitated, we get a lot of flashbacks, like Zach said, to his past, and this is something that's always been very mysterious in the Guardians films. Rocket's always been very defensive about talking about his past, so we get to see these early flashbacks of him being chosen and being experimented on by the High Evolutionary, and he's kind of put in this cage with other friends, other small animals that have also been experimented on, and in really grotesque ways. And I mean, this is PG-13, but I was like, man, this is like, I wouldn't take real young kids to this, because it's pretty disturbing. Like there's a rabbit that's kind of been horribly enhanced, and there's Lila, his like longtime friend, also, who's got these like, she's an otter with these like creepy metal arms. There's a walrus, and it's someone like, I don't know, it's something out of an anime or something. It's really, really disturbing, and like they're like scientific experiments of the mad scientist, the High Evolutionary, and it's some really sad stuff. And they become friends, and they really want to try and get out of this thing together, but it's kind of, it's not really set up for that.
Yeah, like I think one of the things that works really well in this movie is like how visually striking it is. All these places the Guardians go like are just like an overflow of visual creativity. They go to this like oozing planet thing, which is rad, and they go to this like this kind of, I don't want to get too far into it because it's into spoilers. They go to good places, and like all of that like visual creativity, bright colors and like sharp angles and organic shapes and all the kind of cool stuff they come up with to put in the background is like baked into this place where Rocket is in the beginning of the movie, because it's so dark and dingy and grimy and disgusting and awful, and like it's just so unpleasant. And Gunn does a really great job. Like he does, it's not some big whole operation. It's really small, actually. It's just kind of a few cages on like a small set, but like the way he shoots it and the way he lights it makes it so disgusting. And like he combined in a soundtrack, you get some really like tough emotional moments. It does also have some kind of brutal body horror, I think.
Yeah.
in its own way. I think that's why people are so like shocked by it. I saw an article, parents that were mad. They were like, I can't believe I took my kid to see this. And it's like, well, it's PG. It says PG-13, which means your kid should probably be around 13. Like, and that seems like a lot, I think, for a Guardians movie. But like Gunn is not afraid of that. He leans on his old trauma background, right? And he's just gonna be gross.
People forget that James Gunn comes from like that B horror movie background, and that's where he kind of cut his teeth in cinema in his early days. And he still keeps a lot of that. And there's a lot of that kind of grotesque body horror in this, in juxtaposed with a lot of really fun and happy moments. Like we get the Guardians back together, and we get the banter between all of them. They have all their unique personalities, which all kind of quarrel with each other, but all still are very caring. We get lots of funny moments all throughout the movie. I'm trying to not get into spoilers, but you have these really great high funny moments, and then you have this really dark and disturbing. But I mean, it's disturbing as an adult. Like I can only imagine if you saw it as a kid.
Yeah, like I saw some folks on Facebook, some personal friends, say things like they saw the movie before I did, and they got on there and they were like, if I had known they were this twisted, I wouldn't have gone to see it. I'm like, you would have skipped the third Guardians movie? Like, really? And then I saw it and I was like, oh my God. Listen, a perfect spot for bathroom breaks. Let me tell you, if you're not into what's going on, great reason to get up and go to the bathroom, because the movie is long. It is 2.5 hours. And I think outside of the script, outside of the great visuals, outside of the fun characters, the other thing that really carries it is the soundtrack. Dude, there's so many good needle drops in Guardians 3. Like, there's so many great tracks. The first one had a really great soundtrack. The second one I liked fine. This one's fantastic. Like, immediately go to Spotify and go check out the Guardians 3 soundtrack if you've seen the movie. If not, like, just go in surprised. Like, you'll come out better for it, because there's some really great picks.
Yeah, the one of the things that has really stood out about Guardians, the franchise, is just incredible choices in music. Not, I mean, it's a lot of like classic 80s things, but that music's 30, 40 years old now, so it's not real familiar to a lot of people. And he just finds the perfect song in the perfect moment all the time. Like, the choices are really solid, and it's no different in this one.
Yeah. Fun fact: I saw an old interview with James Gunn getting ready for this show to talk about it, and somebody asked him what the hardest needle drop to get was in a Guardians movie, hardest music track to lock down. Apparently, Mr. Blue Sky for Guardians 2, which is like the opening track. He was like, they would not give it to us. It wouldn't happen. Like, it was a whole thing. He had to write letters, like call them a bunch,
Yeah.
beg them, please take my money. You'll get a ton of hits on Spotify right after the movie comes out. I swear. Like, what's it gonna take? But solid music all around. I don't want to give away too much more, but one more thing I want to talk about before we move on to recommendations. I actually really like what they end up doing with most of the Guardians in here, because this is, the last one. James Gunn said he's not making any more. He's moving on to DC, greener pastures for him. I know Dave Bautista, Big Dave, and Zoe Saldana both said they won't sit for the makeup anymore. Like,
Yeah, they're done.
the makeup extension, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure Big Dave never actually goes bare chest in this movie. Maybe he does it once for a scene, but like I walked out and was like, I'm pretty sure he's always wearing something. So it's just his arms and his head in the makeup because he's just
So
sick
tired of it.
it. Yeah, like of course, like the Drax makeup is pretty extensive. But they're not making any more, and this is supposed to be like the end for the Guardians, right? Like they're not really going to do any more. So how do you tie that off, right? How do you kind of wrap up what's supposed to be a satisfying adventure and a satisfying set of characters who are likely not going to be returning again for a while or together, And I think Gunn does a good job. I won't talk about it too much because we don't do spoilers here, but like it's surprisingly satisfying how it all turns out, because every character in this movie really gets their opportunity to shine, and that sets up like a good stage for them to decide what's next.
Yeah, he really sticks the landing, in my opinion. There's a lot of ways you could have fumbled the end of this series, and I think he has I think he just does a good job handling it. One of the things I wanted to talk about was this movie works a lot better than some of the more recent stuff Marvel has done, because it stands on its own. It is a Guardians movie about the Guardians. It's not concerned with the larger MCU or Kang the Conqueror or what's happened. What's the next thing? Which a lot of Marvel stuff just feels like a trailer for whatever's coming next or whatever's it's trying to set up. And this movie doesn't do any of that. It's self-contained. It's worried about its own story and its own characters, and it's so much better because of that.
Yeah, I mean, like explicitly so. Like spoilers. I can't talk about it, but I think the visuals, the script, the cast, the plot, the dark stuff, soundtrack. I think we about covered everything. Andy, what else you got? Should we move into recommendations?
I think we can move into recommendations.
Andy, would you recommend Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3?
Yeah, overall, I really liked it. It's a lot of fun. It's really good writing, good characters. It's really funny. A lot of really good action too when we get there. It does feel a little bit bloated to me. It's a bit of a bloat buster, as Zach coined.
No, you came up with bloatbuster. Like, I just put it together. You were right there. It's an off-script joint.
It's just a little bit too long in some parts. I like the second half. I feel like that's when it really gets going. But it's much more. It's just better than a lot of the Marvel stuff we've gotten. It's a lot of fun. Great soundtrack. Great performances. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Guardians 3 is a great time. If you haven't seen any of the Guardians movies, I don't think you'll be out of place, but you'll have a lot to look forward to if you go see Guardians 3, because the other ones are a bit brighter, especially as far as like the flashback subject matter is concerned, and also are like a lot of the same. Like Guardians 3 manages to thread that needle like one more time and like stick the landing in a satisfying story that concludes our adventures with our heroes in a way that I think everybody's going to be happy with. Oh my God, hold on. Wait a second. There's one more thing we didn't talk about. Dude, we got to talk about Chakudi Iwuji. We got to talk about this performance.
Yes, absolutely.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Hold on. Do you want to explain this to folks at home? Like, because I know we just mentioned him in the open, and I totally forgot to bring him up. Oh my
right.
God.
So Chakudi Iwuji plays the High Evolutionary. You may have seen him if you've watched the Peacemaker show. He's in that as well. And he gives this incredible Shakespearean level performance of a bad guy who's just a really bad guy, because a lot of villains recently have been very kind of postmodern, where they're like, well, they kind of have a really good point. I might have to join their side. Like, Killmonger, Thanos to an extent. and we finally get a villain that is just bad all around that you kind of love to hate. He gives this incredible performance as just this mad scientist bent on creating the perfect society. That's his goal. Is he's going through these experimentations to kind of create the perfect society, this utopia. And every time he kind of gets through a batch and it doesn't work, he's like, well, let me exterminate all that. But he's just so menacing. He delivers a lot of, there's a lot of yelling lines, which are really good. But the stuff that really is creepy is all, he'll say the worst things in the most calm and collected voice.
It's great.
And it's bad. And he just looks down on all these other life forms that aren't him. He's spectacular performance.
Andy's right. Like, it's Shakespearean, especially in the way that it's like, it's almost like the guy's on stage. He's going big and over the top. And Gunn writes a script that gives him every opportunity to experience all the ranges of emotion, right? It points he's like kind and nice and gentle and caring. Other points he's like a horrific monster, right? That like you could barely even look at. He's scared in one scene. He's aggressive in another. Like, he gets to do everything. And Tripodi goes like right over the top. Andy's right. We had to figure out how to pronounce his name for the podcast. It's true. We did have to work that out. But he goes all the way over the top with it, and like is this over the top big boisterous villain that has like all of the charm of Kurt Russell's like baddie from Guardians 2 with all of like the menace of like Lee Pace's in Guardians 1. And also like this brilliant face prosthetic they got for him. They do the RoboCop gag where his face like rolls up the side of like this robotic cyborg thing in the middle of his chrome dome, and like it looks so good, dude. It's such a great looking prosthetic. It's great. One of the better Marvel villains in a minute. Man needs more work post haste. He's in Peacemaker actually, and he's good in that, but it's a bit more toned down.
Yeah, and people are saying, hey, if Jonathan Majors drops out of not being able to play Kang, you got someone right here.
Oops, new Kang. That's right. Yeah. He's right there. I love it. Sorry, not like us to double back on a review, but oh my god, how did we forget talking about him? Anyway. We got to move on to our next bit here. We're going to talk about some upcoming trailers. Andy, what do we call this segment?
It's time for the trailer park.